Hey, before WIT closes, I wanted to post some of my drafts. I put the link in the description.
You're a total widow behind the screen. Everything processed in Sakusa's mind and his eyes widened. There were too many hints and facts for Atsumu to say the name only out of coincidence. He smiled nervously and kept his new findings to himself. Although everything seemed clear to him, he wanted to dig a little deeper. He thought he was going insane. It all happened so quick he couldn't wrap his head around it. He couldn't imagine Achu and Atsumu being the same person, even if their names are basically alike. Atsumu moved towards the edge of the bed and swung his legs over the edge. He faced Sakusa with a smile on his face. Sakusa blushed. He turned his focus to the floor. So, what's your friend like? The best way I can describe him is emo, and I guess he teases me a lot. Although he is fun to talk to. That's good to hear. That description describes him a bit, especially with the emo part. Achu was calling him emo not that long ago. Well, do you have any online friends? I do. Tell me what they're like. Chaotic. Atsumu stared at Sakusa silently, expecting him to say more about his friend. The blonde raised his eyebrow at the latter. There's no way he could describe someone with just one word. Is that really all? I mean, that's all I can think of. I almost feel bad for your friend. This conversation was starting to become really awkward for Sakusa. He was almost 100% sure that Achu is Atsumu, and yet here they are talking about their online selves with their in-person selves. Nothing's bad with being chaotic. He's also a fun and energetic guy. I guess the friends we have are polar opposites. Before Sakusa could even respond to Atsumu, the door to the nurse's office opened and they were met with the nurse. The nurse looked at the boys with a coffee and sandwich in hand. She quickly placed her food on the countertop by the entrance of the room and rushed to the duo. Oh dear. What happened? I'm sorry, I've been out for a while. Are you doing alright? Please calm down, Ma. We haven't been here for long. I just sprained my ankle. The nurse let out a breath of relief and went to get an ice pack for Atsumu. She went to the fridge in the corner of the room and grabbed the ice pack. She walked back towards the two and handed Atsumu the ice pack. Thanks so much. You're welcome, Atsumu. So you mind telling me what happened? She said as she looked down at Sakusa. In all honesty, she had never seen Sakusa in her time as a nurse at their school. She had seen the blonde a few times since he had come to her for minor incidents. We were playing tennis and I tripped over your own foot. Atsumu gasped in disbelief and he put a hand to his chest. He looked at the nurse, who had an unamused look on her face. He rolled his eyes and sighed. The nurse knows him too well. Atsumu's a guy who's prone to injury. You know me too well. You need to take care of yourself better or you'll keep getting these unnecessary injuries. I know, Mum. Sakusa didn't even think before he blurted that out. It seemed like his brain let the fact that Atsumu called the nurse Ma slip past his head. Don't we look alike? Sakusa's eyes scanned Atsumu, then the nurse. His eyes went back and forth between the nurse and Atsumu. He honestly didn't see the resemblance at all. I take that as a no then. No, you guys look alike. You don't have to try and make him feel better, dear. Atsumu rolled his eyes and sighed. His mum is making a fool out of him in front of his new friend. Stop it, Ma. I'm just saying, dear. Sakusa watched as the two went back and forth with their conversation. He didn't understand how Atsumu and the nurse were related. So Atsumu, are you feeling well enough to stay or do you want to go home? We only have a period left. I'll just go home with you. Before Atsumu's mum could respond, the bell rang, indicating that their gym class had just ended. Atsumu reached over to the side of the bed to pick up his shoes from the floor. He put them on and tried standing up. Wearing a tensor band with shoes on is quite uncomfortable. Sakusa followed suit and stood up beside Atsumu. The blonde put a hand on the latter's shoulder as he adjusted his shoe. Are you sure you'll be alright? I sure hope so. Sakusa looked at Atsumu in the corner of his eye. That was such a weird thing to say. Atsumu would just be walking on his sprained ankle. As much as Sakusa would love to offer to carry him again, there would be too many people in the hallway and he doubt Atsumu would want to be seen with a guy like him, despite the way Atsumu acts towards him. Alright, meet me in the parking lot after school. Is there any chance you can help him again? She turned towards Sakusa and gave him a nervous smile. He knew Atsumu was a tad of a handful despite him being a high school student. However, Sakusa was more than willing to help the blonde. He was so happy to hold a conversation with Atsumu and even be near him. He still has to figure out the whole situation with Atsumu and his online friend, but aside from that he was having an amazing day. That's not a problem. I'll help. Atsumu's mum gave Sakusa a huge smile and took his hands in her own. Thank you so much. You're such an angel, dear. He blushed once again. Today he hasn't been able to have any breaks. Atsumu has been making him giddy and feel butterflies all day. Now the blonde's mum is having the same effect on him. He guessed he could see how they were related now. Now get back to class and take that sandwich on the counter. Are you sure, Ma? I'm sure, my darling. Atsumu let out a breath. He wasn't going to argue with his mum. He would rather her keep her own food, but he didn't want to embarrass himself in front of Sakusa. Him and Sakusa walked towards the entrance. Atsumu took the sandwich from the countertop as the two made their way out the door. Thanks, Ma. See you later. Bye, Atsumu. The two walked out of the nurse's office with Atsumu still using Sakusa's shoulder as a support. Luckily for them, their next class was just down the hall. As they were walking, Atsumu opened the sandwich and stuffed the wrapper in his pocket, splitting the sandwich in half. Do you want a piece? It's a fruit sandwich. Oh, okay. Atsumu handed Sakusa the other half of the sandwich and shoved his slice in his mouth. He must have been more hungry than he thought. Sakusa smiled to himself. He loved being around the blonde. He felt great, but there was that uneasy feeling bubbling up in his stomach. Dart, thanks. He uttered out a small thank you as he slowly took a bite of the sandwich. It wasn't half bad. Maybe he should start buying them more. They weren't a half bad snack. So, are you feeling any better? Atsumu looked at Sakusa and nodded. He would have said something but his mouth was still full of food. Sakusa didn't bother asking or talking to Atsumu on their walk back to their class. The whole walk Sakusa was admiring the blonde. He was so happy that he was able to hang out with Atsumu, even if it was because the blonde sprained his ankle. The two finally got to their class. Atsumu took his hand off Sakusa's shoulder and waddled into the classroom with Sakusa following close behind. The blonde took his seat in the front of the class by the window while Sakusa walked towards the back of the class. In the corner with the window, Sakusa sat in the same row as Atsumu, so he could always steal glances. I heard what happened. You doing alright, Mia? I'm fine, teach. Nothing a little ice won't fix. The teacher looked at Atsumu questionably. Ice is definitely not the solution to everything. The end of the school day rolled around quickly. The bell rang and everyone in Sakusa's class packed up and left. Sakusa stayed seated and waited for everyone to clear out the class. Once everyone was gone, he stood up and made his way to Atsumu in the front of the class. Oh wow, you actually stayed. I mean, yeah. Sakusa thought it would be so rude and disrespectful to say you would help someone then ditch them. He brushed it off as he watched Atsumu pack up his school supplies. The blonde soon finished up and stood up. He placed his hand on Sakusa's shoulder and the two walked out the class. The two walked towards the parking lot silently, but Atsumu was humming. Even though they weren't talking, Sakusa found it comforting. His whole body felt calm, except for that one uneasy lingering feeling. He sighed. His brain couldn't take him overthinking like this, yet he couldn't help it. Just imagine, an online friend you've been so close to for years just so happened to be your high school crush. He wanted to make sure for real, but he wasn't exactly sure what he should do, whether it be to straight up asking Atsumu or another way. Aside from him having a whole breakdown in his head, he and Atsumu made it to the parking lot. Just follow me. Atsumu led the way to his mom's park. Luckily the parking lot was practically empty, so Atsumu could take his sweet time getting across the crosswalk. The two made it to the other end of the crosswalk and to Atsumu's mom's car, which was in a parking spot. The blonde's mum unlocked the door while winding down the window on the passenger side. I'm so glad you helped him out here. I really am grateful. Sakusa put his hand on his neck and smiled nervously. Atsumu's mother was too nice. It made him feel like him and Atsumu was a match made in heaven. If your crush's parents like you, it's a golden sign. It's really no problem. I was glad to help. Atsumu took his hand off of Sakusa's shoulder once again and opened the car door. He stepped up into the car and sighed, cursing his mum for having to buy a SUV that's so high off the ground. Thanks for everything, Sakusa. You helped me big time. Thanks again. You're welcome. We have to be on our way now, but thank you, Sakusa. You were a big help. Atsumu waved, followed by closing the car door. Sakusa waved back and took a step back so Atsumu's mum could drive out the parking spot. He watched as their car drove off and out of the school parking lot before putting his face into his hands. Who would have known that Atsumu remembering Sakusa's name would make him feel so many butterflies inside of his stomach? It just feels so good. It's just the fact that someone you're crushing on rememberings your name, especially if you're a loner like Sakusa. He took a breath in before removing his hands from his face. He walked out of the parking lot into the bus stop, which still happened to have a good amount of students waiting there. Sakusa remembered about his empty transit card and groaned. He just hoped he could sneak onto the bus since there were so many people. Not paying for one day wouldn't hurt. Sakusa got home safe and sound, and luckily he didn't have to pay for the bus. He usually leaves school after everyone because he hates being around so many people on a crowded bus. Yet today he had no choice. He got home to an empty house. However, an empty house is a peaceful house. Sakusa went up to his room. He opened his door, closing it behind him shortly after. He walked towards his desk and put his school bag down beside his desk on the floor. He took his blazer off and plopped down onto his bed. His eyelids were heavy. He didn't even know his body was so tired. Moments later he drifted off to sleep soundly. Love struck. Sakusa finally finished his homework and let out a breath of relief. He picked up his phone and made his way to the Discord app. He opened his and Atsu's chats and started typing away. Hi Atsu. Hi Omi. I just got home from school. Really? I got home from school like 2 hours ago. I had a club meeting. I swear it took forever. Aside from that, I have a question. Sakusa looked at his phone questionably. He wondered what Atsu would ask him about this time. Would you want to meet up? Sakusa stood up from his desk in shock and looked at his phone. This was totally out of the blue. He always wanted to meet Atsu, but he didn't think he was ready just yet. I'm not sure. Simon, please. I'll think about it. Think about it now. Why do you even wanna meet this bad? It's totally out of the blue. I just wanna. Sakusa tucked his chair under his bed and sat down on his bed. I mean, he could always go out of his comfort zone. Maybe pushing himself would be good for him. Although he was a little nervous. Meeting people and socializing is good for humans. Okay, fine. Wait. Fine as in me saying I wanna, or fine as it we can meet? The last thing you said. Slay. We should meet at a mall. That's fine with you? I don't have a problem with it. Okay. Maybe this weekend? That's fine with me. What time is good for you? Maybe Saturday at 11? Yeah. You wanna go to Shibuya on a Saturday? It's gonna be crowded. Clear Z. I haven't been there in ages. Alright, let's change the meeting time for 12 then. Okay. It's set then. See Yaomi. Atsu went offline soon after and Sakusa let a breath out. He didn't believe himself right now. He just agreed to meeting up so easily. Although it's good to get out of the house. At this point all he hopes for is that everything goes well. The weekend soon rolled around. Sakusa was beyond nervous. He had so much trouble finding an outfit he liked like he thought he was going insane. He ripped through his closet, throwing everything on the floor. He was making his room look like a tornado ripped through it. He soon decided on baggy dark washed denim jeans with a plain white t-shirt and white sneakers. He went through all that stress of picking out an outfit just to wear the most basic pieces in his closet. The mess was for future Sakusa to clean up. Sakusa looked at himself in the mirror. He gave himself a thumbs up and picked up all his essential items before heading downstairs. He made his way downstairs and walked towards the kitchen. He placed his stuff on the kitchen island and sat on one of the stools. He picked up his phone and looked at the time. It was only 10 a.m. He had a whole 2 hours before he was supposed to meet Achu. Despite his nervousness, he was excited to see what Achu was like, and most importantly see if Achu and Atsumu are the same person. Since had a while before he had to leave, he decided to get someone to eat. He got up from his seat and walked towards the pantry. He opened the door to the pantry and took a box of cereal out. He left the pantry open and walked towards the cabinets where he grabbed a bowl. He poured the cereal in the bowl and returned it to the pantry. He walked towards the fridge and got a carton of milk out of the fridge. He soon poured it on his cereal and in seconds he was now met with the perfect bowl of cereal. As he ate, his nervousness was bubbling up in his stomach. So many things can happen today. Achu being Atsumu or Achu being someone completely different. He couldn't help himself. All he could do was imagine what scenario would happen. Sakusa finished eating quickly. He brushed his teeth and put on his shoes and he was ready to go. He stood by the entrance of his house and pulled out his phone from his pocket. It was 1045 am. He didn't want to take any risks being late to their first meetup. Since Sakusa knew he would have to take a bus and train, it would be better to be earlier than late. He opened the door and closed it behind him. As he was locking the front door, he heard him go off. He locked the door and looked down at his phone. Notification from Discord. I'm about to leave my house. Sakusa tapped the notification. Achu literally just texted Sakusa then went offline right away. Sakusa quickly typed on his phone for a few seconds before putting it away. And I just left. Sakusa made his way to the bus stop. Walking 2 blocks to get to a bus stop isn't for the weak. Sakusa's house is so far away from the main street it's funny. They really need to install bus stops in neighborhoods. The bus pulled up to the stop and Sakusa walked on, tapping his transit card, and luckily this time around it didn't decline. Sakusa rode that bus non-stop to the station, but it couldn't help but think about the endless scenarios on his way to the station. He finally made his way to the station. He jumped on the first train to Shibuya. Sadly for him, the train was a tad bit crowded. This just reminded him why he barely comes out on weekends. Not like he has anywhere to go anyway. When he got to Shibuya, he walked off the train and walked up the stairs to leave the station. Once he was met with the outside, he was astonished. It was like a new environment for him. So many people, so many billboards. There was just so many everything. He pulled out his phone and made his way to the Discord app. His heart was beating so much. He was getting so nervous to the point he was sweating buckets. I just got here. Sakusa walked to the sidelines and stood there awkwardly. Shibuya was such a fascinating place. Not long after, Sakusa received a notification. Yeez, me too. I think there's a Sanrio store in front of the station. Let's meet up there. I'm wearing shorts and a blue t-shirt. Oh, and I'm super hot. Skull. I'm wearing jeans and a white t-shirt. And I'll be there in a minute. Okay, I see ya. Sakusa exited the app and let out a shaky breath. He was scared shitless right now. He looked around and spotted the Sanrio store immediately. He clutched the strap of his shoulder bag as he started walking towards the store. His heart was beating so fast he felt like everyone around him could hear it. He made it to the store and opened the door. He looked around slowly and walked in. He walked towards the back of the store and acted as if he was looking around. The only thing he was looking for was for him to calm down. He took deep breaths and luckily it did calm him down. When he finally calmed down, he looked around. He now understood why people would go crazy or Sanrio merch. They were cute and very fashionable. As Sakusa was looking around, he heard his name being called. His breath hitched and he turned around slowly. Omi. Sakusa recognized that it was Atsumu and blushed. He was so happy that his hunch was right. Atsumu walked closer towards Sakusa and his eyes widened in shock. Sakusa? Seriously? Yeah, the last person I would expect. Sakusa nodded slowly. Now that Atsumu knew that Yomi was actually Sakusa, Sakusa himself had so many butterflies and nervousness filling up his stomach. He felt way more anxious right now than he did when he actually spoke to Atsumu due to his injury. This is lame. I wished you could have been cooler. I literally don't want to be seen with our school's outcast. Sakusa took a step back in shock. He never knew Atsumu thought so poorly of him. His eyes became teary and he clutched his bag even tighter. Having such mean things said about you to your face hurts. Especially someone you have feelings for. Who would have known it would have hurt that bad? Love struck. Sakusa jolted out of his sleep. He was sweating and breathing heavily. That was one hell of a nightmare he had. Now he feels even more on edge than he ever has. He didn't need this right now. He doesn't need this extra stress and uncertainty. The dream wasn't real, but Sakusa couldn't help but overthink. He got up from his bed and walked towards his bathroom, which was connected to his bedroom. A shower would be a good way to calm his mind. Sakusa finished up with his shower and changed into his sleepwear. He plopped down on his phone and decided to watch a few YouTube videos. Luckily for him, he didn't have any homework because he had completed all of his homework at school. Sakusa had a few hours before it would even get dark out. And in all honesty, he didn't want to sleep in case he had that terrible nightmare. As time went on, Sakusa let the time pass by spending his time watching YouTube videos. While he was watching videos, a notification came in from Discord. At first he chose to ignore it, but his phone kept buzzing and buzzing. He pushed the uneasy feeling down and went into his and Atsu's chats. Hi. Hello, Omi. Don't be dead please. Omi. You good bro? I am not good. What took you so long, you traitor? Calm down buddy. I responded in a like 2 minutes. 2 minutes is too long. Okay Mr. Time Obsessed. Ogre. Whatever you fraud. Fraud. Mega fraud. Anyway Mr. Super Mega Fraud, I have an very important. Sakusa's breath hitched. In his dream Achu had said the same thing. He's feeling very anxious now, especially because of the bad dream he had just had. If Achu is Atsumu, he would hope that Atsumu wouldn't say such hurtful things as the Atsumu in his bad dream. Wanna play Roblox? Sakusa let out a breath he didn't even know he was holding in. Achu in real life couldn't be as mischievous. Achu in his dream, he doesn't even official know if Achu is Atsumu. He still has to do some detective work in that department. I don't even have an account. Then make one. Anyway, I also wanted to ask. Wanna call? Call? Yes Swajia. We can talk while we harassed children on Roblox. Sakusa looked at his phone with a raised eyebrow. Achu was indeed a weird cookie. He didn't really have a problem with calling. And on the plus side, he could use this call to identify whether Achu is Atsumu. Fine whatever. Yes. Sakusa sat up from his bed and walked over to his desk. He pulled out the chair from under the desk and sat on it. He turned on his monitor while waiting for Achu to call him. Moments later a ringing sound filled the room. Sakusa took a deep breath and answered the call. For the first few seconds the two stayed silent. Sakusa honestly didn't want to be the first one to speak. Hi. Oh wow. Didn't expect you to sound like that. Anyway, make an account already. I'm waiting for my monitor to turn on. Turn it on faster man. I only got an hour before my mum drags me out of the house. For what? Remember when I said I sprained my ankle? I'm going to the hospital to get a cast since I fucked it up big time. Good job there buddy. Oh shut up you fool. If anyone's the fool it's you. Anyway, how'd you sprain it? Didn't I tell you already? You didn't respond. Ooh, my bad. This might take a while. Okay. First I sprained it while playing tennis. Sakusa's heart started beating faster. Atsumu sprained his ankle the same way. And in addition, Atsu's accent sounded a lot like Atsumu. At this point Sakusa wished that his hunch was right. Atsumu was someone who'd he had a crush on for a while and Achu is really easy to talk to. It would take a little getting used to but in the long run it would be a win-win. Who really would have thought? However, the only thing circling his mind was that if Achu and Atsumu were the same person how would he reveal himself? Not to mention he has the biggest crush on Atsumu and he told Achu all about it. Then I got brought to the nurse's office. But get this, my gym teacher made a guy in our class bring me. I've never really spoken to him much but like, he likes the same things I do and he's hot. He's hot oh me. Like I don't know why I've never thought so before. Maybe I'll ask him out. If he swings that way. Sakusa's brain short-circuited and he turned bright pink. All he was thinking was Atsumu asking him out. He needed to get out of his head but he couldn't help it. All he wished for was for his hunch to be right. Nothing more. His bad dream didn't scare him anymore because in his heart he doesn't think he would be treated that way. Very cool Atsumu. So, what's the guy's name? Since I'm not afraid I'll tell ya. His name was Sakusa. Sakusa threw his phone and stuffed his face in his pillow. There was no way this was a coincidence now. He was acting like a little girl at this point but he didn't know what to do. He wondered whether he should tell Achu well. Now Atsumu that he's Sakusa or not. He decided that he should take the risk. He picked up his phone and took a deep breath in. Atsumu. Oh my god wait. Did I just say Atsumu? Like my name? I did. Are you a stalker? I might go to the same school as you. Wait. I can't believe this word. What grade? What's your name? All Atsumu was doing was yelling over the phone. From his reaction Sakusa was 100% sure that Atsumu and Achu and it made him ecstatic. He couldn't believe he's been talking to his crush online for so many years. He had been friends with Atsumu online before he had even started to develop a crush on Atsumu in high school. I'm in my second year and I'm not telling you. How do you drop the bomb on me by telling me we go to the same school? Yet you can't tell me your name? You're a fraud. At least tell me your homeroom. 2B. You're in the same class as me. You have to tell me your name. Please. No. Oh my god you do not know how much I want to strangle you. Sakusa giggled. He loved seeing Atsumu getting all riled up. He would love to reveal himself because he has the confidence to do so. After Atsumu called him hot and debated on whether to ask him out made Sakusa even more confident. Before the two could even continue their conversation a loud bang echoed from Atsumu's line. Come on Atsumu. We're going now. My threat still stands Omi. Bye. Sakusa ended the call and a big grin appeared on his face. Nothing could explain his happiness. He recognized the voice from the other line. It was the school nurse who was also Atsumu's mum. Although one thing made him scratch his head. He could easily identify Atsumu and his mom's voice but Atsumu couldn't do the same. He just guessed that speaking to a lot of people a day makes you forget easily. Aside from that he wondered if should ask Atsumu out. Although he would take a lot of courage Sakusa would be more than ready to. First thing he needed to do was make a plan on how he should do this. There's so many options yet almost all of them made him nervous. Planning on how to tell Atsumu was future Sakusa's problem. He turned off his monitor and went straight to bed. Friday, 7:40 am. Sakusa woke up earlier than usual so he could put money on his transit card. He did his morning routine, ate and left his house 20 minutes earlier. He walked to the main road. He went to the store across from the bus stop and reloaded his transit card. He walked back to the bus stop and waited for a few minutes. The bus pulled up and once the doors opened Sakusa stepped on. He saw that it was that same elderly man. He smiled at the mail and tapped his card. It went pulled through and he walked towards the back of the bus. As the bus was getting closer to Atsumu's stop, the bus was surprisingly getting crowded. Once the bus got to Atsumu's stop, he couldn't even see the blonde due to so many people being on the bus. He sighed. At least he would get to see Atsumu once they got off the bus. A few minutes later, the bus pulled up to the bus stop in front of his school. Unfortunately for him, he had to push his way off the bus. Once Sakusa got off the bus, he looked around but he didn't see the blonde. It took him a few moments to realize that Atsumu said he was getting a cast. It would be safer and easier if his mum gave him a ride. Sakusa made his way to class and went to his seat. He watched as all his classmates flooded in, but Atsumu was yet to come. Moments before the bell rang, Atsumu walked through the doors with an air cast on. He smiled and waved at Atsumu and made his way to his own seat. Some of his classmates circled the blonde asking if he was okay. The blonde assured that he was alright and the class began. During the class, Saku could see Atsumu looking around. Sakusa really threw him off. Sakusa decided to be a little funny today. He pulled out his phone and made his way to the Discord app. "Yeah, nice cast you got there." Sakusa giggled to himself as he watched Atsumu pick up his phone. He looked around the classroom and Sakusa could see the irritation on Atsumu's face. "You little pain in the ass. Show yourself, I beg you." Let me see." "No, you did not." "But I did." Sakusa went offline moments later. He was having so much fun teasing Atsumu, but for the day he wanted to avoid Atsumu as much as possible. He couldn't slip up. The school day felt like it went on forever. Sakusa succeeded in avoiding Atsumu. Since the blonde couldn't move around as much, he and Sakusa didn't talk much. The end of the day rolled around and Sakusa made his way home. He thought it would be a good idea to ask Atsumu to meet him, and if everything goes well he would ask Atsumu out too. Sakusa did his homework and took a shower. Once he was done, he plopped down on his bed and pulled out his phone. He made his way to the Discord app and went into his and Atsu's chats. "Hi Atsumu." Atsumu came online in record timing. He felt like he was moving too fast, but he already put the fact that he's Atsumu's classmate in his head. "You decide to tell me who you are?" "Well, not exactly." Sakusa couldn't believe he was doing this. If anything, he would have thought Atsumu would be the first to ask, given his personality. "You wanna meet up?" "I thought you'd never ask, you asshole." Straight-mouthed face with one raised eyebrow. "I totally did mean that, and yes, I wanna meet. You wanna go to Shibuya?" The coincidences with his dream was somewhat freaking Sakusa out, but Shibuya was a big place that focused on shopping. "Sure. What about Saturday at 12? And I mean TMRW. AM or PM? What do you think, dummy? I'm about to change my mind." "Wow, I'm sorry. TMRW at 12 is good. See you." "Alright, bye bye." The two went offline and Sakusa was beyond nervous. He was happy he could reveal himself and that Atsumu had said nice things about him, but the unpleasant feeling lingering in his stomach made him feel anxious. He was meeting up with Atsumu in a few hours. He had to find a good outfit and make sure his hair looked amazing. Even if Atsumu had seen him before, he wanted to look his best. The morning rolled around and Sakusa woke up early. He had his outfit all planned out from last night. He walked to his closet and pulled out black baggy jeans, a white t-shirt and his favorite sweater with a Toyota 86 on it. Sakusa was really a car person. He got himself ready, made his hair look nice, and he put on his favorite sneakers. Once he was ready, he put his belongings in his shoulder bag and was on his way. He said goodbye to his empty house once again. Sakusa's parents basically lived at work. Sakusa didn't see them much. He was pretty much a lot most of the time and most of his days, but he hopes that will change within the next few hours. Once Sakusa walked out his house and locked the door, he checked his phone to see the time was only 1030 am. It would roughly take him an hour to get to Shibuya, so he had some time to waste once he got there. Sakusa had gotten to Shibuya way earlier than he expected. It only took him 40 minutes to get there. Once he exited the station, he looked to his left to see a cafe there. Since he didn't eat earlier in the morning due to his excitement, right now would be a good time. He walked in the cafe, got some food and sat down at an empty booth. As he ate, he scrolled through his phone. As the time went, he became more nervous. He wondered what would he say. "Hey man, I was teasing you but wanna hook up." It would probably be the most simplest way. Time moved faster since he was stuck in his head for the whole time. He was shaken out of his thoughts by his phone buzzing. "I just got here." "Where you at?" "I'm in that cafe right in front of the station." "I see it. So what are you wearing?" "Black hoodie." "I'm in the third booth on the left side of the store. I'm like the only one in here, so you can't miss me. Unless you're blind. I will waddle in there with my cast and I will fight you." Atsumu went offline soon after and Sakusa giggled while nervousness consumed him. He actually wondered if Atsumu was going to fight him or not. Part of him wished he told Atsumu off the bat, but another part of him wanted him and Atsumu meeting up for the first time to be special. Moments later, Sakusa heard the doors to the cafe open. He put his head down. He was sweating buckets when he heard the footsteps become louder. "Omi?" Sakusa lifted up his head slowly with a nervous smile on his face. Atsumu looked at the latter in shock and stepped back. Sakusa, wait. Omi, Yomi, yeah, serious right now." Atsumu sat in the booth and was sitting right in front of Sakusa with shock written all over his face. "Yup, that's me. You literally had me wondering so bad." Atsumu looked at Sakusa and he wasn't disappointed one bit. In fact, Sakusa was looking even better today. "You're not disappointed?" "Huh? About what?" "That I'm your online friend." "Course not. I'm actually glad." Atsumu watched as Sakusa's facial expression relaxed. He didn't understand why Sakusa would ask whether he was disappointed or not. Sakusa was a pretty cool guy. "This is a crazy coincidence though." "Sure is. Before we go shopping, I wanted to ask you something." Sakusa took a deep breath. He didn't expect Atsumu to be so calm about meeting him, but he's grateful. He hoped that Atsumu would say yes. Even if he's moving too fast, he can't help himself. His anxiousness is making him jumpy and nervous all the time. At this point all he wants to do is get it off his chest. Do you want to go out? You mentioned asking me if I swing that way. Atsumu's face turned red. This was the first time Sakusa has ever seen Atsumu flustered and is living for it. Are you serious? I am. Yeah, we can try. Atsumu covered his face with his head and Sakusa smiled to himself. He was so happy no one, not even himself, could explain the happiness he's feeling right now. Sakusa slid out of the booth and stood in front of the blonde. Atsumu quickly tried to slide out the booth as well, but he lost his balance. Atsumu fell face first into the latter's chest. Sakusa put his hands on Atsumu's shoulder and helped him stand up properly. Sorry about that. Atsumu covered his face with his arm and looked down at the floor. He hadn't even been with Sakusa for more than 15 minutes. When he and Sakusa held a proper conversation, he absolutely found Sakusa attractive, but he guessed since Sakusa was also Omi, he felt more of a connection between them, and Sakusa asking him out didn't make it any better. He wouldn't mind giving him and Sakusa a try. He's looking forward to it. Sakusa, can I ask you something? Again? Atsumu looked up from Sakusa's chest and looked at him curiously. He wondered if Sakusa was going to say something that would almost give him a heart attack again. Can you still call me Omi? He would be more than happy to keep on calling Sakusa Omi, but now he's thinking about it, he wondered what Sakusa's first name was since he said his username is a part of his first name. Of course. But speaking of, what's your first name? Kayumi. Ooh, so that's where Yomi comes from. Well, do you wanna go shopping now? Sakusa looked at Atsumu, then down at the cast he was wearing. Even if it was called a walking boot, he wondered how long Atsumu could actually walk on it for. Alright, you led the way. Atsumu took a hold of Sakusa's hand and led him out of the cafe. Sakusa blushed once more. He smiled softly. He couldn't believe this was happening to him right now. He was always alone and admired Atsumu from a distance, but now that he stepped out of his comfort zone, he's happier than ever. Atsumu dragged Sakusa to a nearby clothes store and started browsing through the variety of clothes they had, but something stuck in Atsumu's mind and he couldn't stop thinking about it. So Omi, how'd you know I was at you? The first time I thought it was you was when I accidentally called you. You asked for my number and I saw the missed call notification. That's really how you found out? That's only the beginning. Looked at Sakusa with an raised eyebrow. Sakusa really seemed like a detective. You said your online friend was called Omi, and on the phone you said my real name. Ooh. Atsumu pouted while his face flushed pink. Sakusa was hearing Atsumu rant about how hot he is. It made Atsumu feel a little embarrassed. You're really a detective. What I did was child's play. The duo went around to many different shops, from clothing stores to shoe stores and even bookstores. The two didn't buy much since all they were doing was having conversations about nonsense, but they both enjoyed it. The two haven't been together long, but they complement each other well. Atsumu got tired of walking, so the two stopped by a cute ice cream store. They brought ice cream and sat down at a table together. I had fun today. Me too. Atsumu watched as Sakusa ate a spoonful of his cookies and cream ice cream. He took a deep breath while thinking, you only live once. He leaned over the table and kissed Sakusa. Sakusa's eyes widened. He didn't even know what to do or where to put his hands, but he enjoyed every second of that kiss. He tasted the mango-flavored ice cream during their kiss. This was officially the best day of his life. Their lips danced around in the kiss before Atsumu pulled away. The two were breathing heavily, but Atsumu managed to form a smile. He was glad that Sakusa was Omi. A kiss on the first date is wild. Sakusa couldn't even manage to keep a straight face. His face was flushed and he had a small smile on his face. He was truly happy that Atsumu was his online friend, and he was even more happy he left his comfort zone.